What is up, everyone? You're back.
How's everyone doing in the chat? It's been, I think, about a month since our last podcast.
Maybe, yeah, give or take.
Yeah, because I think we did one right before all the Riptide news came out. And we were talking with people from different regions that have started their local scene back up. Kumatora, Q-Tip, and Blank. And kind of just went through, what locals were looking like and how we thought Riptide was going to go before, we got the news that Nintendo decided to shut down Riptide.
Yeah, screw Nintendo.
Yes.
The Lon Lon Ranch is in support of not Nintendo. Here to hear from.
Yeah, absolutely. However, thanks to Melee Sad Posts, Motobug, a couple other TOs, I'm obviously going to forget, if I keep naming them off, but we were able to still have an event out there for the community called Undertow, and that was broadcast live yesterday. For those of you who were on Twitch at the time, you probably saw it, and it was a crazy tournament.
It was super dope. If you were not there, man, I'm sure after watching it, you wish you were there. I was fortunate enough to have been able to go, and not only was the tournament super great, there was tons of upsets, lots of money matches going around everywhere, but the event itself, plus just hanging out with everybody from around the country, was just a great time.
Yeah, and I mean, it was the first event back, real major back after, we've been in quarantine for a while, so this was kind of our first major back. There are a lot of people who showed off that, they've been improving and practicing a lot. I mean, some of the key upsets, we had Malachi losing to Aztastic and Chevy, Tech Boy losing to Blue and Comb, and, those were top seeds for the tournament. And they did not make top 8.
Yeah, Akimi, another one, also losing to Comb. Comb and Blue, I believe, both were the people who took out
Tech
Boy, and also, I think, Akimi? I know they jointly took out the same two people, but I can't remember who the second person was. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And then also, kind of leading into what our subject is going to be of today, we had the Doctor winning his first major, which was incredible to watch for all of us, and I'm sure it was big for him, and we'll find out more about that soon. But also for the character of Mario. I mean, I even saw someone on Twitter mentioning how this is the first time in any Smash game really that Mario or Dr. Mario's won a major.
Figure it's the same for Mario, right? Has Mario won a major?
I think in Smash 4 probably, but yeah.
It's fine. Kevin means Dr. Mario. For the sake of this
absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, so today we're going to be going through kind of the Doctor's experience with Undertow, and also just, how his Smash career has gone in general. So it should be a lot of exciting stuff, kind of going from the beginning to winning a major. You get to hear that whole story. And speaking of which, I think we're ready to get him in here. Are you ready, Robert?
Yeah, with that being said, let's go ahead and bring in Mr. the Doctor. You are live, bro.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for having me here, guys.
Thanks for coming, Kevin. Just for those in the chat who don't know the Doctor's real name, I'm going to call him Kevin basically like the entire time throughout this podcast, because he is a close homie of mine. We've known each other for literally as long as I've been playing PM, so I'm just going to call him Kevin.
And I think that kind of brings up a good point that we could start with is, Robert saying he knows you since he started playing PM. How did you start playing PM, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. So, me getting into PM competitively was kind of like out of the blue, I guess. So the story was I had a lot of time in between summer between the last year of high school and the first year of college. Of course, it's like a really big transition period, and I had a lot of free time for myself. And I heard from a word of mouth from one of my best friends at the time. His name is Cody. He told me about the game, and I decided to kind of look it up, see what it was all about, and then I looked at the like original Project M website and saw that Dr. Mario had been added in 3.02. At the time, I didn't know it was just a skin, but I obviously found out later. At first, I was kind of upset about it, but then obviously now I definitely would not want the split. They would be way worse separated than they would be together. But anyway, so I found out about the website. I downloaded it. I actually had to play it on my Wii U Project M at first because I did not have a working disk drive on my Wii, and so that ended up making me not able to use a GameCube controller. So the beginning of my journey actually started with the Classic Controller Pro, and
I remember this.
Yeah, and I ended up using that controller for the first 3 years of my competitive life. So I'll talk more about the transition later, but basically that's how I kind of found out about it. I originally made Pit and Brawl, so I kind of tried them out too. But Dr. Mario had always been the character I used back in Melee and stuff, which was not my first Smash game, but it was the first Smash game I think I was really into. Because I did play a little bit of Smash before, but I was so young at that time that it really didn't stick with me nearly as hard. But the reason I ended up choosing Dr. Mario was because basically I tried to kind of 100% Melee in a sense, where I tried to do classic adventure mode and events as all characters. And trying to do that over and over again, but never having written down where my progress was at, I always ended up restarting and doing everything again with Dr. Mario because he was on the top left of the character select screen, because I just figured go top left to bottom right and then kind of go from there. But I would always forget where my place was at, and so I'd always just end up being okay, I'll just start with Dr. Mario again. But then that naturally ended up making me play that character the most, and I developed an attachment to that character at some point throughout that. And then so when I did see that Project M had Dr. Mario, I was like, oh shit, he wasn't in Brawl, so I had every reason to try out this game. Especially since they also added Mewtwo and Royals. This is awesome. This is better Melee. I still think that, but yeah. But but so I ended up trying the game out on my Wii U with the Classic Controller Pro. And for those of you who don't know, an HD TV was also involved. And when you have an HD TV combined with a Wii U and then a wireless controller,
good time.
It's just a really big delay, combined with dropped inputs and just a bunch of crazy stuff that it's literally unplayable. If I ever had to do that setup again, I would never.
Yeah.
I would rather not play the game at that point. I mean,
yeah, I don't blame you. Quick interjection here. From what I remember, it's only been you, or at least out of notable players, it's been you and Aeon who used the classic controller. And I know that both of you have had issues in the past at tournaments where your controller would just drop inputs. And
right, yeah. So it took me a while to quite realize exactly what the problem was and to see if it was fixable. But essentially, the reason that happened was because Wii remotes work off of Bluetooth 1.0. And so no matter how stable the connection was between the Wii remote and the actual classic controller itself, the real problem was the Wii remote picking up inputs and then putting them into the Wii wirelessly. And of course, I wouldn't notice it nearly as much as home because you only have so many electronic devices kind of interfering with that signal at home. But then when you go to big tournaments like majors, regionals, all that, it gets noticeably worse. In fact, I can actually name specifically. I did have one set at one of the BroCal tourneys. It was against Oats, and that was quite literally that was my breaking point. But basically what happened was that my Classic Controller Pro kept drawing me inputs and actually costed me that whole set. And it was definitely and surprisingly enough, the transition really wasn't that bad. What ended up happening was when I did decide to go from the classic controller pro to the game controller, I kind of just used like your standard whatever controller. And then it took me like about a week to actually feel like I was pretty much fully comfortable with it. And I say that because the biggest issue I had with it was that if you know anything about a classic controller pro and a GameCube controller, you can see that you can see that the way the game controller works is that the Z button is above the trigger buttons when and that was by far the biggest adjustment I had to make, because that would change the way that I had to wave dash, and it would change my process of thinking about like grabbing out of shield and stuff. So you can clearly see the point where it didn't really bother me. I still, if given the choice, I would actively still use this controller instead, assuming that there would be no issues with it. Like if I could plug this straight into the Wii or whatever, then I would 100% use this controller no matter what. Because I still prefer the triggers, I still prefer the size of the face buttons, the C-stick location, the D-pad location, basically everything.
Huh. I didn't know that.
It's also much more comfortable fitting because it is kind of smaller, and I don't have very big hands. I actually have pretty relatively small hands based on like my height and stuff. But so yeah, long story short, I ended up switching to a game controller after about 3 years in my career, and then 1 week after I like actually started like actively practicing with a game controller, I actually won an Ascension, a local, over. Actually, maybe I didn't win it, but I know for a fact that I won a very important set in it. That was like the second or third time I'd ever beaten Pikmon, who at the time was a really big bracket demon of mine. But I beat him with a GameCube controller instead. And so like that kind of like gave me the confidence to like continue using the GameCube controller outside of just like, you know, just pure practice. And like, honestly, if I didn't ever make that transition, I can confidently say I would not be where I am right now, like in terms of skill level, because that was 100% holding me back.
So let's take a step back and, you know, going back to where you were getting into the game, you know, you're talking about how Dr. Mario was kind of like, you saw him in the roster and you're like, oh, this game looks sick. And you were playing on this HD TV setup, which obviously you say is terrible. But what made you stick with, you know, wanting to continue to learn the game competitively? I mean, was it like the community, or was it, you know, the depth of the game itself, or what kind of kept you, you know, sticking to the game?
That's a good question. So I picked up the game casually around that time, around the summer after high school, between college and high school, and I ended up later dropping it for Smash 4 because that October was when Smash 4 got released on both the 3DS and the Wii U. So I was like, all right, you know, like new Smash game, of course I'm gonna play this, I'm gonna have a good time. And then the adjustment from Undertow to Smash 4 was really odd, and I didn't really understand at the time why, but I obviously know why now. The game was significantly slower and didn't have anywhere near the like fast-pacedness and like smoothness, low latency and inputs and stuff like that. And so like, you know, I ended up transitioning in and trying to take Smash 4 seriously, but that only lasted about 2 months or so, where I was like, literally at some point I was playing my friend, and you know, we were playing like Mario Sonic or Dr. Mario Sonic, and neither of us could really combo each other. And I was just like, yeah, this game's boring. I just said fuck it. And I was like, this is not interesting to me anymore. Like, I can only read your air dodge so many times before I decide it's boring. Because it's literally a 50-50 to some degree. But anyway, so it was really the depth of the game that brought me back in. It was the fast-pacedness, the intense high-octane combos, the precision, the amount of like freedom of movement, like everything combined with that is why it is like undoubtedly in my mind like the best Smash game and why I ended up returning to it in the first place. And then so that December I picked it back up, and then that January I decided to go to my first tournament. I ended up going 0-2 that tournament. Funnily enough, also the first tournament I ever met now Big Large, back then Master Bates, and also Ivane. I met both of them there kind of like I kind of just saw them there, didn't realize they were going to be such a significant part of my life later down the line, but I did see them there. They were present there. And so I ended up losing to Ivane 2-1 in my losers round 1 match, and we played like Mario Marth and Ivy Marth, and I ended up losing. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But of course, everyone busters out at their first tournament. I kind of gave Ivane because it was also his first tournament. I let him not go 0-2 his first tournament, which I mean, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I was pretty bad back then, but I was still pretty determined, obviously, because it's like, when you go into your first tournament, and you should never do that because it's a very dangerous mindset. I knew I wasn't very good, and I knew I had a lot to learn. I was basically a baby, and but of course, like I ended up going to my next tournament after that, and I go 2-1, and I'm like, all right, word, like that's progress. I think it was like about a month later, and and then around that time was when I like tried to get a Smash Club going at my college, UC Davis. I was like, I want more people to play with. I want more people to know about this game because I knew it was a small game because it was a mod. I was like, more people deserve to know about this game, and they deserve like a chance to play it and have fun. And like, I didn't really want to be a leader, like public figure or anything like that, because I felt like I wasn't going to be very good at it. But my friend at the time, Marlo, was like, no, you got to do it, man. Like you know so much about the game, and I feel like you're a charismatic person. I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, if it's a small sacrifice to pay, like just a little bit of embarrassment or nerves, just to make sure that I spread the good word of Project M. and so I ended up like creating the club at my school, and I ended up meeting a bunch of people that I still talk to now. Like I met Josh, and I met Jeff. I eventually later, like the next year, met Robert, and later that summer, we got our first ever tournament where I think that was my 4th tournament. There was one tournament before that I didn't host, but I ended up getting 3rd. It was essentially my breakout tournament because I ended up beating a Melee player that wasn't considered very bad, I guess. He was considered like not, pretty okay in the region, especially in Melee. I don't remember what his tag was, but I ended up I ended up beating him. And then, the second you beat someone kind of notable to some degree when you're a nobody, it's like, oh, people start to learn about you all of a sudden. They're like, okay, like this guy's like, all right. And that tournament, I ended up losing to DP and Chokinator, 2 really old school names.
The classics. I remember those names.
I think DP still plays Melee, and I think Chokinator hasn't been playing Smash, but I know for a fact he's still on Smash Facebook. So.
Fun fact, this podcast would probably not be here today if it were not for Kevin starting that club. Because Kevin starting that club is what got me into playing PM competitively. I did have a bit of I played like a tiny bit beforehand, but never competitively, and like never with anybody other than like my brother. And then when I was looking for Smash clubs when I first started college here at UC Davis, I saw that that the PM club was a thing, and I was like, ooh, that sounds fun. And I joined it, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I mean, I also I went to UCLA, and we had a Smash club out there, and at first there wasn't much of a PM scene, but as more PM players arrived, we were able to kind of put together a lot more of a scene there. And I do think that opportunity to have a club that plays the game is really helpful for the community in general. And I'm sure that we all can see that helped us grow as players, and continue to foster our love for the game.
Make friendships, all sorts of things.
I was gonna say that like literally I've made lifelong friends because of the club. It was like easily like one of the best decisions that I could have ended up making. Even though I like was hesitant on it at first. It almost didn't happen essentially if it weren't for Marlo.
Shout out to Marlo.
And yeah, big shout outs to Marlo. He doesn't play the game anymore, but
he's still a homie.
Yeah, still a good friend. But yeah, like literally like it kind of just all took off from there. You know, like my breakout tournament, I got third. Like later, when we did host our first tournament for the club, I got third as well. And then like around that time was when I started to get some character games as well. Which I do acknowledge that Mario is not a super fun character to play against because of his weight and fall speed. He is like, I actively don't like playing against Mario either. Like it's no surprise, and it's like, you know, it's very obvious that he is not super enjoyable to play against, and I think to some degree he's not super enjoyable to watch either because he's super bread and butter. And of course, when you do really well with a character like that, in region, out of region, eventually, you know, all that kind of stuff, you do develop haters. Literally anything you do, that's just what's going to happen. No matter what character you play, though, you're going to end up having people trying to discredit you or disliking your playstyle, stuff like that. That was very jarring for me too. I had to kind of deal with that very personally in region at some point, because it was like, that was around the time that people discovered that down throw fair on Mario is absolutely stupid. On top of the fact that his recovery was bonkers. This was 3.5 Mario, by the way.
Oh.
So this was actually like 3.02 Mario was even better. And I started essentially with 3.5 Mario because I think 3.02 came out around December or November or something, and that's part of the reason I also re-picked up the game again. And I believe it was like December 2014 or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I ended up essentially starting my competitive career with 3.5 Mario. And I would say that 3.5 Mario is arguably better than P plus Mario. In some ways he is, in some ways he's not. Because he obviously had like the even stronger forward air than he did now. And then he had a crazy up B invincibility and hitbox frames. That was pretty wild. But yeah, my point is though, is that like, so basically the club took off from there, and like my whole Smash career started from there. And like that was the origin point. And then like from there on, I think until I graduated college, and even sometime after, I was still like an active participant in the club, aka just like going around to like not just in region but also like in different parts of California to also meet people and like, you know, try to get them to like come out to our tournaments and stuff like that. I ended up meeting like a bunch of people from SenCal, SoCal, Arizona, maybe not Arizona actually, and then like later down the line, you know, more and more people is my point. So
yeah, I think, you know, going off that starting point, you know, obviously a lot has transpired since then. You know, I think there's probably, you know, a point where when you got a bit better, where you got maybe ranked in region or you know, ranked on the PM rank, that you may have started taking the game a bit more seriously. Can you speak a bit about, you know, kind of that transition to, you know, probably I could call it like the grinding phase, where, you know, you really wanted to get a lot better, or what was like a major milestone for you that kind of sets apart that?
I think there were a few actually. So around the time that I like basically got into like the grinding montage section, which is basically like I ended up like getting ranked on the stack PR, and then I ended up, so like how should I say it? So the first year that the club was created was in 2015 of April, and we ended up hosting a welcome back tournament summer after, and that's when I beat the number one player in SAC, considered DP, and like I would say that to some degree that was potentially like the original like, oh shit, like, you know, hit the ground running, like we're gonna take this all the way type deal. Because what happened was was at that point, like, even though I lost him later in losers, it was at that point that I realized, like, you know, I beat someone really good. And if I get better, I could do it again and again. And what ended up happening was later down the line, I ended up getting more and more bracket demons. You know, I ended up losing to a Falcon in my region named Notorious, who was a really good Sacramento Falcon player, also a melee player. And he was like my bracket demon for like the longest time. And you know, like one day I beat him, and it was like huge wave of relief. Like I could feel the progress. Like it was such a satisfying feeling. And then, you know, of course though, this doesn't mean I was winning tournaments. It literally just means that I got like one round farther. You know, I would go from like you know, like do my breakout tournaments, I got third, but then like later down the line, I would end up seeing myself getting fourth or maybe fifth, because there would be more and more better players that I would end up getting introduced to. You know, people like Boring Man, people like Thunder's Reign, people like, at the time, Fridge Bits was considered really good, Brandendorf, and, you know, like a bunch of other people that were considered like way better than me. And like literally like one by one did I go out of my way to defeat them. Like I think I ended up beating Boring Man. I don't even remember when, really. It was like one set where he ended up SDing, and it was like a grand final set, and I still lost that, like, you know, tournament. But like one by one did I end up smashing down my bracket demons, and I was appalled, like, at myself that I could make that sort of progress in that short amount of time. Because like the thing is that this all happened over the course of like maybe 2-3 years, right? I was still playing at the Class Controller Pro, and I was already like, I think what ended up happening was in around beginning or so 2016, I was ranked like number 5 on the NorCal out of like 15 people, like also ranked on the PR, and then that was like probably out of like maybe like 60 people potentially. And like I was pretty impressed with myself. You know, I didn't realize that like I had progressed so much. And I think, and this is like pretty relevant until recently, that I felt like there is a bit of overestimation on how good I was, and then like in other people's eyes, and then also I felt like I wasn't nearly as good as maybe like my results told me I was, because I would always kind of twist it in a way where I felt like it's like, oh, it could have been this, it could have been different, maybe I didn't beat this guy who's like I consider better in my head, stuff like that. But what ended up happening was basically like I got better and better. I ended up, you know, taking a set off Boring Man, Notorious. You know, at some point, Ivane actually came all the way up, and also actively started giving me trouble as well. Back when he played Wolf, and then also eventually Pikmon, Peter the Cheater, ended up coming to our region and actively destroyed me with Game Watch. And that just like just like that, like another bracket demon introduced. And then, like I said earlier, like eventually I did beat him both with a Classic Controller Pro and then also with a gaming controller. And then, like, literally at that point, the only person that I had been losing to in region was Thunder's Reign. Like he was like by far the biggest hurdle. And around the time that I like started to get really good, was around the time that he had his major breakout. I think it was Final Boss. He ended up, you know, getting second that tournament, only ever losing to Junebug. And like it was around that time that, like, you know, I was considered pretty good in region, maybe number 2 or 3, just below Parker. And then like I couldn't touch Thomas. And I had huge difficulty, like for years, even after like I basically reached a point where I would play against Thunder's Reign in bracket. I would constantly lose to him. He'd expose me, basically. I think one set he literally went Mario against me and beat me, like against my Mario. So it was like he was like so outlandishly better than me, like at some point in region, even though I was beating everyone else. And like that was a huge wake up call for me in a sense too. Is that was when I was like, you know, like I still have such a long ways to go. Like I'm to this guy, I'm untouchable, or he's untouchable. You know. And then that was also around the time I ended up developing a friendship with Thomas as well. Because, you know, he was good, and he wanted me to get better because he was just like a really nice person. And he did see a lot of potential in me.
Yeah.
I think actually when I ended up getting into winner side top 8 of Undertow, like I was like Discord messaging some friends, and he was there, and he said, "Kevin, you could win this tournament. You could like with this bracket, you could 100% win this tournament today." And I told him like, "I don't know, dude. Like, I really don't see it. Like, it could happen, but I feel like it might not. Like, I feel like kind of happy with 5th. You know, like it. I was really just hoping to make top 8, and I've already broke like what I consider like my 7th place curse. Because like I had recent placings over at Smash and Splash and Low Tier City at like 7th, and like then I was like, damn it, I can't get above 7th. You know, like I've already hit this huge milestone of getting top 8 at a tournament, and I can't get past that to any degree. But anyway, so Thomas was ended up being one of those people that was really influential to me because he ended up actively trying to help me to get to be as good as I could possibly be. You know, he'd help me look over sets. You know, he'd coach me against other players. We do VOD analysis, and on top of that, he was just like a good person and a good friend to have. So eventually down the line, I did end up beating him at a local. Surprisingly enough, but I think at that local he'd also just come from like 2 major tournaments too, so I could tell that he wasn't playing nearly as well. So to like in my own head, I was still you know, it was almost a fluke. Like it's good that I still won, but at the same time, like I have to give it to him that like he was not playing at his best that day. And basically from there on, it was just like. I also had a huge problem performing out of region at some point. I remember one of the Brocals, I ended up losing to Nation, the SoCal Mario and winners, and then Ion, the SoCal Sonic and losers. It was like one of my first out of region tournaments. And I was like so upset because I felt like I played awful. And it was because of out of region nerves. You know, it's different. Like you get into like this comfort zone when you play in locals that you're like home territory, you know, like literally you're just miles away from your home, and you're playing with people that you've played with over and over again. And then the second you step out of region, you just get introduced to like several new play styles and characters and matchups you don't know, have no idea how to deal with. But on top of that, you have to deal with like the consequences of travel, like jet lag, just overall tiredness, you know, house plans. Like all of that in the back of your mind while you're at this tournament out of region. And eventually I overcame that as well. And I don't entirely remember how, but I think it was like more of a slow burn process where I ended up like getting a little bit more or a little bit less nervous and a little bit more comfortable throughout, like every time I met more and more out of region. Yeah.
I know that I've also had that similar issue that is only now barely getting kind of resolved, where you know going out of region is just a hard thing to deal with, basically for all the things that you said. Kind of just end up getting in your own head for a bunch of different little things, and it just builds up, and you know you're not at home, you're out of your comfort zone, and it makes it hard to get back into that comfort zone so where you can play at your best. And I guess for both of us is the same. It just took some time of, you know, going to more and more out of region tournaments and just slowly kind of easing your way into the water, basically, until you're comfortable enough to swim.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on that too, to go into a question that I want to ask Kevin is, you know, there are a lot of points in people's career when they're, you know, competing in something that they do feel, you know, that things are getting tough and, you know, it may not be worth it. You start losing motivation, things like, you know, tough losses, or, you know, in our case, you know, Nintendo coming to play, and, you know, like you're saying too, like out of region nerves, sometimes that could be a tough toll. Nerves in general, you know, get up to a lot of people. And I do want to know a bit more, Kevin, about, like, you know, some moments where you did feel challenged, that, you know, your motivation may not have been as high for the game, or, you know, you were starting to feel that, you know, this may, you felt stuck, you know. People hit plateaus, and, you know, what kind of let you get through these moments to kind of push through and get to where you are now?
Right, yeah. I can name at least a few moments like that. So basically, I felt like I hit several plateaus throughout, like, so far, like the 6 or 7 years that I played the game. I feel like there have been plenty of times where I'm like, I have zero idea how to get better. I don't know what else to do that like I can do better. And at this point, like maybe that's just it. Like maybe this is just as good as I get. And like it wouldn't happen often, but when it did, it basically ended up looking like I'd go to the same local every month, and I'd end up placing the same, getting like destroyed by Thomas or by Boring Man and stuff like that. And then like the next month it would just happen again. It can be pretty demoralizing, and it is always a question of like, what can I do different, like at all, to sort of like get out of this funk. Like, and the funny thing is that like obviously like in none of those moments that I thought back then did I ever plateau. Like I quite literally always got better. I think one really big motivational factor is, well, there's two, but one of the biggest ones is progress. Seeing your own progress is a really big like motivation for you. Even though I was doing in the same, like I was performing the same in region for a long time, out of region I started to get better and better results. I started beating people that like people thought like I would just straight up lose to. And then I could see myself kind of getting more comfortable with how I played, and kind of getting into the groove of things. But then I would still lose to like people like top players or high level players, and but just even seeing that crumb of progress, to see that maybe I haven't plateaued, or maybe this is how like it just is going to be for a while, but it's not always going to be like that. I think specifically, if I could name a huge moment where like there was like a bunch of external factors that kind of led into this, but I ended up going to, I think it was LTC 5, and what ended up happening, it was I ended up going out of my pools in Winterside, and then I ended up having to play DVD first round. Now, if you don't know who DVD is, he's like the Toon Link, like that is not Lunchables. Like he's the Lunchables that if Lunchables only played Toon Link and he was the character specialist, right? And even then, like that guy is really good. He's like an East Coast player, I think, from Long Island, and I ended up losing him in round 1 winners of LTC 5. I got creamed, dude. It wasn't even close. Obviously, like if you know how LTC went, like he literally got top 8. I think he got like 5th, 4th place maybe. And he did really well. So I ended up losing him in winners round 1, and then that's when I ended up in losers round 1, and I believe my losers round 1 set was against Shokyo. And then I ended up destroying Shokyo, actually. Like, it was one of those moments where, like, it's just like, even though it was a losers round 1 set, there were, like, hella people behind me and Shokyo watching us play. And then, like, I ended up beating him. I ended up having to play, like, quite a few other players, including, forget his name, but he was the Wario from Arizona. He was, like, Dad something.
Or Dadpool?
Dadpool.
Yeah.
Yes. I ended up having to play Dadpool, and then I ended up having to play Venom from SoCal, the SoCal Falcon. And I played both of them, and it was like game 3 last stock, 5% both of us. Like it was super close. It could have gone either way. And then like after I beat Venom, I immediately went to go have to play Sosa on stream. And this was for top 8. Like at that point, I had made it far enough into bracket that if I won one more set against Sosa, that I would have made top 8. And it would have been insane because at that point, like I still was like losing mostly to Parker. And Parker wasn't, I don't think, in attendance at that time. But what ended up happening was that like I ended up going game 3 against Sosa, being up 3 stocks to 1, and then ultimately losing, right? And like obviously, like I'm the kind of person that like when I'm really passionate about something, like I give it my all, and like if I see any like big failures or big opportunities, like I shoot myself like in the foot so hard. I take it really hard, and in turn that also means I end up taking my wins very like very hard as well. Like I pop off. Obviously, people see the pop offs, and they're like, let's go, like, good shit. And then, but they don't see nearly as often is like the like awful feeling of like just whatever the opposite of pop off is. Basically, they don't see that nearly as often. But specifically, the set that I played against Sosa was streamed, and at the time there was a lot of external factors, like I was saying earlier. I thought that since my grades were dropping so low at school at the time, that I had to stop playing Project M, because like I needed to focus more on school, and stuff like that. Like I was like at the point of like almost dropping out, and like I was like, okay, well, like now I can't. I felt like to myself, I felt like I can't do anything fun anymore. Like this is my last big PM tournament, maybe ever, and like, let's just see how it goes. And then that's when I almost ended up getting top 8, and that's when I started to cry after I lost to Sosa, because I was like, damn it, like this was like my last chance, and like I ended up just falling flat, like just a bit, only because I cracked under the pressure of like, holy shit, I could beat this guy, like I could beat a top player, I could make it in the top 8. Those thoughts entered my head as I was 3 stocks ahead of Sosa, and then that was all I was thinking about instead of the game. And of course, like later, like people started to like kind of like calm me down, like ask me like, like it's okay, like asking me what's wrong, kind of sort of deal. Because like I don't think I would have cried against him if I didn't think that was going to be like where it ended, basically. Because like I think I would have just been proud of my performance, because that was by far the best performance I'd ever had at that time, and it was by a lot. Like it's one thing to get just a crumb of progress, but when you see like yourself get almost top 8 at a national, when you still feel like you're a mid-level player, you're popping off, like you're like, you feel amazing about it no matter what happens. But at the time, like I said, I thought that was gonna be my last PM tournament ever, so I thought, well, that's my last big showing, was like me fucking choking it, and it's just so embarrassing. And like thankfully, being the person that Sosa is, he actually was very kind to me about it. He kind of reached out to me saying like, hey, like, you're really good. I know you got shaky at the end there, but it's okay. And I kind of explained the situation. He understood like where I was getting at. And he still like was like you should not stop playing. Like you're hella good, dude. Like don't worry about it. Like you'll be okay. And I ended up getting like calmed down by also like some of my former opponents, and also some of the NY and J guys, telling like, dude, you're stupid good, like don't even worry about it, like you'll be okay, and all that kind of stuff. And like it's pretty crazy, because literally like depending on how that went, like it could have gone a little differently, and it would have been a big change, where I feel like if people kind of like ratted on me for like kind of like break it down like that in front of a top player, and like on stream in front of a huge crowd, like if I basically got flamed for that super hard, like publicly and ridiculed and stuff like that, I don't think I ever would have touched the game again. Like even if I wanted to, basically. But the community was actually quite nice about it, and it was very comforting, because I think that when you are like such a small gaming community, that it's like brothers in arms type deal. Like even if I don't like who you play, or even if I don't really respect how you play the game, like to some degree, I still want you to play the game. Like the common tie for all of us is that we love this game, and we all have fun playing it. And like I think I got comforted by a lot of people, and like that was huge, I think. And thankfully, with huge support from my girlfriend at the time, who like basically helped me make a game plan for college, and like basically altered the course of like my college career. I ended up doing okay in school, to the point where I was able to still compete in the game later down the line.
Yeah, and I think it's very nice that we can hear like that the community was so supportive even in the tough times. But like I don't know, I feel like we all as competitors go through those tough losses, and we all kind of know where it, like how it feels sometimes. I mean, for a lot of us it does suck. We're all emotional at times, just with what happens in general. And it's nice to hear that even when I do think, for example, that someone like Sosa in the community, people do tend to think that sometimes he is like a little bit of a villain sometimes. I wouldn't say that he doesn't have that persona to the general community, but it's nice to hear that even in that situation, he was there to comfort you, and like, you know, the other top players are also there to kind of like, you know, help, because they want people to continue getting better at the game. And you know, I think that's something that is not common sometimes in some other communities where, you know, everyone wants everyone to get better, I think, in the PM community. And it's great to hear that, you know, that that was there when you needed it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that says a lot about like the community, considering it was like a top player can basically like to some degree, like, and this goes for like I think fighting games in general, is they can kind of act basically as shitty as they want to the community, as long as like they're not breaking any rules, you know. And that says a lot about like the overall tone of how it's going to be whenever you go out and compete, you know. I definitely wasn't expecting him to like have such a like a positive reaction, I guess, to like, you know, helping me out and stuff like that. And you know, like on top of having him, and then like, you know, my friends at home, like it made all the difference. Like that could have been a huge like turning point. Like I could have been so demotivated, but instead like I ended up wrapping it all the way back around to still getting better, and then getting to the point where on last Saturday, that I cried tears of happiness instead. Happiness over one. Like this huge milestone had finally been achieved, and I had overcome something that was like, that I had been thinking about like for like the past 6 or 7 years since I started competing, and that was winning a national and being the first one to do it with Mario. So that, I think like that big time skip difference is like pretty nice, because I also didn't know that like it was going to happen this soon either. I was talking about it with a friend like the other day, like I thought like I had maybe 2 to 3 years until I could end up taking a national with Mario, and then it just literally happened last Saturday. And I'm like, oh crap, like I didn't expect this. It was quite literally the last thing that I was expecting to happen.
Yeah, I as somebody who's been with you through a lot of this journey, and I mean we've just known each other for so long. We talk about the game, we talk about how we feel with our progress and such. It was kind of surreal watching you win. I know myself and the rest of NorCal were very proud of your win. Like we just all know like where you've come from and how long it's been and how much you've wanted it. It's pretty dope. It was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, I did cry a little. I'm an emotional person, and I did shed some tears watching you win. It was dope, man. It was so cool.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I wasn't there obviously, but you know, just seeing from, you know, the reactions that I could see on the stream, or you know, even just hearing, you know, people on Twitter, everything, it's like it meant something to the community as well. You know, like I think the community as a whole, you know, it was happy to be back, and they're happy that, you know, people are still working hard and getting better, and like seeing, you know, new people win majors and things like that. Like it's not just like a monumental point for you, I'm sure, but also for the community in general, where it's like, you know, our game's still developing, we're still here, and we have like new top players coming out and winning our tournaments. Like I think that was really what stood out to me too, is like it was just such a big deal. And let's talk a bit about, you know, kind of how this win, you know, affected you and like what it meant to you, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I mean, basically how the day went was like it started with me kind of like being like, all I want to do is make top 8, you know, like I know that for a fact that like there are people on the stream watching right now that know that I ended up like I guess taking kind of like a short break from the game at some point after I shortly after I stopped streaming. Like at some point during COVID I developed my own stream and like kind of try to like brand it towards myself, and ended up playing a lot of Project Plus there when it just came out. And you know, I sort of like you know, kind of branded myself as like, yeah, you know, like I'm really good, and like just come watch me play, and like, you know, like we'll have a good time. And you know, at some point after I decided to stop doing that for my own personal reasons, that I did not play a lot of Project M for like a while. Like, I ended up switching over and mainly focusing on Final Fantasy 14 and like kind of having fun with that and trying to make my own progress in that game. And it wasn't until like maybe like 5 months ago that I was like, all right, like I'm gonna play P plus again, like net play, like fuck it, like it's I've taken like a decent amount of time like away from the game, and I want to play it again and want to see my friends again, stuff like that. And obviously, like by see my friends, I really just mean like hang out in the Discord voice calls, chatting up like your homie while you're having just some fun games. And so I ended up taking basically like a big break in between, somewhere in the middle of the COVID era, and I think it wasn't until like 3-ish months ago or so, maybe less, that we ended up like trying to get together and like prepare for like tournaments like to come back, because it was obvious that like or at least at the time it was obvious that COVID restrictions were being lifted soon, and we should start getting better again, because now nationals are going to start happening again. And that's when I ended up booking my flight to Riptide and everything, and that's when I started hosting LAN sessions with the boys and started the grind like almost all over again. And then of course the whole Nintendo thing happened, and like I literally cried at the announcement too. Like I was like, dude, like what the fuck? Like I literally just wanted to play, and now like all this money's down the drain. I'm not going to see my friends. Like that was really big heartbreak for me. And then of course I did watch how the community reacted to that and how unified they were and how they didn't give up. And what's interesting too is that I wasn't so nearly as close personally to it back then, but it did kind of happen in the past where like they were like, oh yeah, PM can't be a main event anymore, it has to be a side event now, blah blah. But like it hit really different when it happened at Riptide, because at that point like
you thought we were safe.
Yeah, basically like it was like almost it was literally out of nowhere actually, and 2
weeks before the event.
Yeah.
And it was like I thought at this point like it was like that era of like Nintendo shutting us down and like being a bitch and stuff like that. I thought that was over. I thought we were just allowed to have like our game and have fun and stuff like that. And then like just to like suddenly be like, no, fuck you, kind of that shit like that. And like me being as close to the game as I am now, like I took that so personally, of course. And I almost didn't go, but seeing the community reactions and stuff like that, and like how they're like, no, fuck it, we're still running the event, we're having a side event, doesn't matter, don't care what anyone says, like it's gonna happen. And I ended up like being like, okay, yeah, I'll think about going. And then everyone in like the original flight plans and room plans we had were also like, what, fuck it, I'm going. Like I'm going. And I think honestly, if all of them weren't like so set on being like, fuck them and like let's just do it, like we're gonna do it, like it doesn't matter what happens, like then I don't think I would have gone either. Because if everyone would have backed out of the room plans and stuff like that and out of the flights, I would have been like, I guess I will too, like doesn't really matter, I guess, like whatever. But that's not what happened. And what ended up happening was like it was like we gotta play. If we don't play, then Nintendo gets exactly what they want, and it's to shut us down. So like going into Undertow, I was like, it's probably not even going to be that well run. It's really last minute. I kind of don't care in a sense, but like since like the more and more people that started entering, especially the top players, and I saw just how like stacked the tournament was, I was like, oh shit, like day in, like every single day, the tournament was getting more and more serious. And I was like, fuck, And then at the time too, like maybe less than a week before the tournament, Trace was like Kevin, this sets the tone, because it's the first national back, and whoever wins this is going to be like considered to be the number one player and stuff like that. And it's like however you do, like don't even worry about it though. Like I just want you to have fun. I don't want you to be upset, like no matter how you do. And that's when I was like, I gotta be realistic. I gotta hope for top 8, but at least be like, this is fine, like no matter what, because I had to try to be not too hard on my performance, because at the end of the day, like I only maybe practiced like a month or two before it really happened. Like that's when I started trying to take the game seriously again. And also like the last 2 locals we had before Undertow, like was when I lost to Parker, aka Sitmaster, aka Boring Man. And
Sid messed up.
and like at that time I knew Parker had been practicing a lot more. Like Parker had been taking the game more seriously, had a lot more time on his hands, and ended up being like trying to practice and get really like, you know, really, really good again. You know, and at the time, like I was like definitively NorCal #1, whatever, outside of like Thomas, which like he'd also like, you know, is still taking a break from the game kind of. And and then that's when I lost to Parker. It was at like an Ascension like a while ago. And that's when I was like, okay, you know, like good for Parker. You know, I lost, and I kind of maybe needed this loss because that's what really motivated me to even step up my game even more and like practice day, like every day until Undertow. And then ended up happening that I ended up losing to him again, like at the next local. And I was like, I was getting so upset at myself at that point because I was like, dude, I'm like practicing, like I'm getting back into it. Like, but in the back of my mind, I was thinking maybe I need this kick in the ass. Like maybe I need, you know, like someone like Parker to tell me, hey, like wake the fuck up. Like you're not going to be doing like nearly as well as you want to. Like if you can't, you know, perform even well against me, like when you're at home, basically. And I actually really benefited from Parker beating me those 2 tournaments, I think. Because like with every loss, like instead of being like, fuck, you know, like I'm just not going to perform well, whatever, it was more like, fuck, I need to get my ass together. Like, you know, like I need to shape up, you know, wipe the rust off and, you know, just go ham. And, you know, like at that point, like I got really motivated. That's when I was like, all right, I'm pinging that play in the SoCal Discord. Like I'm playing, like I don't care like who it is, I'll play Mario. Like the better the player that is, I'm gonna play Mario. You know, and I'm like, because I mean, even when I did like start playing again like 4 or 5 months ago, like I was just really playing Falco, just not giving a shit. You know, playing DK, playing Ganon. But like, of course, like at my core, I am like a Dr. Mario man. Like, and so even though I wasn't playing that character a lot, like I needed that push to kind of be like, okay, like you need to practice Mario more. Like you're messing up tech here, you're messing up sweet spots here, you're messing up like simple shit at this point that you shouldn't be messing up because you've been playing for so long. But right now you need to like kind of like de-rust and like maybe it'll be okay. And I didn't have a lot of time. That was actually one thing I was also really worried about going into Undertow, is that I did not put in the amount of time that a lot of people like ended up putting in, because people had been grinding basically since the start of COVID and did not stop until Undertow. Shout outs to Nagrilla, because that was basically him. And of course he ended up placing really well that tournament, and he definitely deserved like his placing. I think he did place a seed, and a lot of people were surprised that he was seeded so high, but I knew Noah was good, so I was kind of like, it's not the craziest thing that he was seeded for. So I was kind of scared because I was like, fuck, you know, like I don't think I'm nearly as prepped as I should be or could be at this point, and I just wanna, you know, like I just want to perform well at the end of the day. But you know, like the more top players I entered, I was like, yeah, you know what, like top 8 would be a fucking pipe dream at this point. You know, like Tech Boy's going, Bob's going, and I was like, this top 32, like I could literally lose to any one of these players looking at it, and I was like, this is rough. So I literally didn't. Basically, the point is, I went into Undertow thinking that I was maybe gonna place top 8 at best. So that's pretty funny, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, and you won. I mean, it's incredible, and it's cool to see, you know, that you surpassed kind of your own expectations there. And you know, I am curious if there is anyone, you know, who was at the tournament that you didn't get to play that you were kind of eager to play, or just like, you know, in the PM community in general. I mean, there are a lot of you know, good players out there. Is there anyone in general who you're kind of itching to play right now, at like maybe the next national or?
Oh, I was really hoping to play Bob. At some point, and then but I will say really quickly, one player I 100% expected not to beat, and not only not like I didn't expect to just lose him. I expected to get like 3-0'd, like, or maybe even triple four slot kind of type deal. I thought I was gonna have to play Tech Boy in winter semis, and I thought I was just gonna get destroyed, like, and it wasn't even gonna be close. And I think I still would actively want to avoid Tech Boy in any of my brackets because I have no idea how that matchup goes, and I don't even know if Mario's any good at it either. So,
yeah, we have no way to practice ICs here in NorCal. Nobody plays them.
Yeah, I mean, not even in the game, really. In PM as a whole, there's very few ICs players.
Yeah, so. Of course. And so, like, getting the ICs practice is so hard. Yeah, I mean, I was honestly just super excited to play any top player. I think all I did Friday was really just like try to get as many games in with as many good people in as I can in the hotel rooms. I ended up going to the room Noah was staying at, and it was like him, Cloudburst Blue, and Lunchables. And we ended up playing just like some doubles and like a little bit of singles. And like it felt nice to kind of like play against these players again. And then I ended up holding my own against them, and I was kind of like okay, this is a good sign. Maybe I'll do okay tomorrow. We'll see. And then what's funny is that I ended up going to the NYNJ hotel room later that night, and as Twisty and some other people described it, I was running the setup. They were all like, I could say this now that we're in California, but basically, they were all high and like shit, and like it was super chill, and like they were just trying to have a good time, and I ended up just being a fucking sweaty tryhard the night before, just trying to play some games and prep for the tournament. And so I was running the setup according to them, and then like I felt like I was playing pretty well that day, and I was like, okay, like who knows, like who knows how Saturday would go. And then I ended up warming up on Saturday, and I was like, damn it, like I felt like I was playing better last night. I felt like so much more confident in my movement last night and stuff like that, and my confirms and all that. And like I don't even know if that's true anymore, to be honest. Like I actively don't know if I was like playing at my absolute best like on Saturday or on Friday or whatever. But obviously I did play well enough. So
really, that's all you need.
Yeah, really, it really was. I don't think a lot of people actually knew this, but I ended up playing a bunch of friendlies with Yono, and I didn't know who he was at the time. Like he was literally just some Knuckles player on the setup with me. And like part of the reason I also didn't think he was like anyone like special was because I was just creaming him. Like I think we had played like at least 15 or 16 friendlies, and like he only ended up ever winning one of them, with me winning most of them. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is just like practice. Like this guy's not bad. He's like not bad with Knuckles. And like I just thought he was gonna be some guy who ended up like probably losing somewhere around like early losers top 32 side, and it was gonna be like whatever. Funnily, of course, that is the guy I do end up meeting in winter semis without actually knowing it at the time. Pretty funny coincidence there.
Yeah, you almost got bopped.
Yeah,
I mean you got a little bob for two games.
I explained it later, but basically, between my set with Twisty and between the start of top 8, I ended up not playing for about an hour and a half, like straight.
Oh, so you weren't warmed up at all.
Yeah, exactly. Like I had just gotten cold again, and I was like, "Oh crap!" Like
story, your whole arc basically, that like when you first started, like you kind of just wanted to like get good, and then you beat like your first good player, and then you were like, oh, so I could just get better and beat the next good player and the next good player, and I want to get top 8 and stuff. Like what were the goals that you set for yourself throughout your like PM career basically?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So to make it very clear, basically, at the start, it was really just get better. Just maybe number one in NorCal. And what's funny about that is that like that was a way harder goal than I actually ended up realizing, because obviously at that time I didn't know who Thunders was, or like and at that time he wasn't even nearly as good like until later down the line. So literally the first goal was like number one in my hometown, and then number one in NorCal, and then number one in Cali, another unreasonable goal at that time, and then the biggest one though that like I ended up like kind of like running for and really wanted was to be the number one Mario player. And the sequence of goals was essentially to be if I won a national with Mario, like, and no one else at that point had done it yet, that I would definitively be the best Mario. Like they kind of went hand in hand, essentially being like essentially the same goal that I ended up going for. I know a lot of people in NorCal and stuff, and like not even NorCal, but like just like in the PM community, were like, yeah, dude, you've been like the best Mario. Like you like ever since like Gal retired, or even and some people would argue even before then, like I was the best Mario at some point. Like that didn't have to come alongside the first national win. But I always questioned it, at least personally, because I was like, well, maybe I'm the best Mario currently, but there have been a lot of other Marios in the past who have just done way better than I have ever done at this point. I thought to myself a long time ago. Not even that long ago. And so I was like, yeah, maybe I am the number one Mario, but it's kind of a shitty title when I feel like I haven't done anything of significance. And so that's why, like, the moment that I was like, okay, if I do win a national though, like, then I can kind of say that comfortably without really feeling awkward about it. And then of course on Saturday, that's exactly what happened. That's why that win felt like it was so much to me. Not only was it like 6.5 years of like such hard work and determination throughout, alongside of like a lot of plateaus and a lot of losses, it was also like the reassurance that I got, like being not only a top player but also being the best Mario. I was like I gained like such confidence winning that national. It was something that I needed the win. Basically I needed the win to basically kind of like break out of like, oh no, like maybe I'm not that good kind of shell, and to be like, yeah, like no, I am good, and I can definitively say that. Maybe I'm not the best, and of course I'm not the best right now. I know some people are kind of thinking that like maybe I'm the number one top player right now, even though like because I won Undertow, but I don't think that's true at all. I think that like I ended up getting a really good bracket for me, like a very doable bracket. I wouldn't even call my bracket good, really. It was just doable because I still had to fight a lot of like really scary people along the way, like Twisty and Bongo, and of course Wombat. Like I literally for
I was going to say that
some people that didn't like maybe watch all of Undertow, I actually literally almost went to loser side of my pool, earlier that day. So I went to like game 3 with Wombat. I went to game 5 last hit against Bongo, which by the way was by far my scariest set that day. Actually, it was like the set I was the most nervous for, and like game 5, like it being game 5 and last hit was why I was like shaken basically. But thankfully I kept calm and did win that set. And then like Twisty actually, even though I was seeded to beat Twisty, he's actually been positive on me. I think the only time that I had beaten him, outside of like the 2 or 3 times that we played, it was at like the local before Flex Zone. But then at Flex Zone and at even bigger bout, he beat me both times, and I was just like, fuck, like this guy's really good. But like I don't really know, like people consider me better than him, but I feel like like in the head to head I still lose, which is why I'm like, even now I'm kind of just don't think of me as the number one top player right now, because I definitely am not. It's just there's so many head to heads that I didn't have to play that day that I definitely could have lost. Like and like it could have been so close, or I would have just maybe even gotten like destroyed. It was basically like a lot of work with a little bit of luck involved, basically, that ended up letting me win that national. And I think that even though so I'm going to Blacklisted in November, and even though like now I'm gonna be like, a really high seed, like all eyes are gonna be on me to maybe even win that as well. Like, I don't think I'm gonna win that. I think that I'm gonna maybe do okay. It depends on who I lose to at that point, because my placings aren't really gonna be what like bothers me more so than like who I lose to. Because if I feel like if I lose to people that maybe I thought I could have beaten, then that would be more upsetting than like just me getting like 5th or 7th or 9th or 13th or whatever. I'm really just trying to say like right now I'm not the number one player, but of course I will never stop appreciating the people who go out of their way to tell me, dude, you're amazing, dude, you're sick, you're cracked, you're like the best player I've seen, like you're so sick, like, and like I will never get tired of that. Like I definitely want to reassure people that if you ever see me in person or see me online, and if you tell me like that, like if you compliment me like that, I will never get tired of it. So by all means, feel free to go out and do that.
Yeah, everybody go ahead and stroke Kevin's ego even more.
Well, the funny thing about that is like I felt like I said earlier that like it was kind of hard for me like back then to really take those compliments at face value, because I always had to like, oh, but I'm not like this or whatever in the back of my head the entire time. But now I feel like I can take them a lot better because like in the game's history, like that's just where I am now. I not only made like this great stride of like achievement for myself, I also did make PM history, which is really cool. So
pretty cool indeed, homie.
Yeah, and I guess we're kind of reaching towards the end. I do kind of want to talk a bit. So you do have Blacklisted coming up. Is there any other kind of events or goals that you have going forward for PM or
right? Yeah, good question. So of course, like it's not like the Cinderella like storybook ending kind of type deal where, oh, I won a national, now I can stop. It's I still love the game, and I still want to get better than I am right now, because I feel like now I'm thinking like, damn, was I better at this player's peak back when they played? Like could I even beat peak Thomas right now, or peak Sosa, or peak Malachi, stuff like that? Like now I'm entering those thoughts in my head, and now I'm thinking like, okay, well, if anything, really, like the PM journey has just begun. Like I won a national, and now it's like I'm on the ground level again, where I have this next goal that I'm trying to achieve, and that's to be the number one player in the world for at least 1 year, at least. And in turn also be really satisfied with my play. And like, even though I won one national, like this end of the year, like it might not even be counted whenever I maybe do ever end up achieving that goal. Now the next goal is to be number one, which includes not winning just one national, but probably winning a lot of them throughout 1 year. So that's a lot of work, and I don't honestly know. Like theoretically speaking, I could never win another national again. I could have just gotten the one, but a lot of people commend me for my consistency. So I think that hopefully, now like I don't let this be a sort of one-hit wonder type fluke. I hope that from here on out, I prove myself to be a contender for the number one spot in all of PM. So.
Yeah. Okay. And then I did want to ask, kind of 2 closing questions, which are kind of similar, but they'll probably have a different response. And one goes to, there are a lot of new eyes on the game right now. And, there are a lot of people who are just starting, and they're probably getting destroyed or, not sure how to go about improving. And, what would your advice be to someone who's just kind of starting out the game? They're new, they're going 0-2, and what kind of advice would you give them to keep going and still strive to improve, even when in a game like PM, everyone's pretty damn good already. Like for someone just starting, it could be a bit tough. What would your advice be to someone like that?
Yeah, honestly, I think setting realistic, reasonable, and achievable goals is definitely something that's good. I think that if you're literally going O2 and you don't know why, or if you're gonna, like you want to get better, I think the first thing you might want to ask yourself is, how far do I want to, go? Like, how far do I want to take, like, me getting better? Do I want it to be a situation where I just want to win all my locals and, like, if I do that, then I'm satisfied? Or is it going to be like, I want to be the number one player who ever touched the game? Just think about that, reflect on that first. And then once you find your answer on that, then you just start achieving or trying to set reasonable goals. Like, maybe I go 1-2 next local, 2-2, 3-2, and maybe I just beat this particular person that I feel like is better than me, or this one. Like, it's all about playing more and, like learning from that. Like, and like that's definitely one of the most important parts, is that you not only want to lose, you not only want to win and get better, but you want to find out why you're losing in the first place, because that's how you end up achieving the whole getting better. Like, if you do end up doing the same shit over and over again, like in neutral or off stage or something, and you don't realize you're getting punished for it, like that's what's making you bad. Like, it's when you don't realize your own mistakes and your own flaws like that, that's what makes you bad. So if you don't want to be bad, then you just do the opposite. You realize what you're doing wrong.
Just be good.
You just and like sometimes it takes like someone really good to basically put that in front of your face and like tell you, hey, you're trash. Like, you need to stop doing this. Because like I think when we're all like a low level player, I think we've all kind of gotten our asses handed to us to the point where, someone like does like this really crazy option that like would never work, but because they have such a good read on you as a player, they end up doing something that like is like really disrespectful or crazy or something like that. Like, if you end up getting like falcon punched or something off stage because you recover the same way every single time, or if you always end up like doing this projectile placement here, and so they'll just like I don't know, like DK fair spike into punch or something, sometimes it does take like you to get embarrassed about like your performance to basically like realize what you're doing wrong. So I think just find out why you're losing, and if you need help, like, the community is here to help you. Like, obviously there are plenty of people in around the United States that are probably like the only player in their region, and so it's hard. But nowadays we do have access to net play, and like the netcode is really not that bad. It is very playable and enjoyable. And so like you use those like resources that we have on those discords, and like you end up you want to play with people that are relatively close to you and stuff like that, even if they're like 3 hours, 4 hours away, that you might find like, it's actually crazy because back then you just didn't have that leisure. If you were the only player in a region, you would get fucked. Basically, you would have to like drive 8 hours to go to a local or something ridiculous like that, and that would just be how it was, and you didn't really have anything else that you do on top of that. But now we have so many resources, guides that are being developed, and like every day we're making more and more progress as a community to help newer players, kind of break out and like reach their strides and like have access to all of that. Like, the game is way more accessible, basically. Like, I think that like it took me about like 6.5 years to get to like even halfway to where I want to be. And I think realistically, if someone who started like today, someone could achieve like that goal in maybe like 2/3 the amount of time with like the resources are now. So like,
Absolutely.
it's just a lot of time and grinding, but yeah.
And then another question that I had, and this one may be more personally motivated for me, but I do think a lot of people are feeling it as well, is after the news of Riptide or Nintendo kind of coming in, or even just in general, as you're kind of making your rise up and you're grinding. We did talk a bit about motivation and how sometimes there are times where things fall low. And I did want to go back to that and kind of touch on, what are some of the things that you'd say to people who, are struggling with motivation and, feel like they're at a plateau or feel like they're struggling to get better at this moment? Do you have any like clear cut advice that you think could help break that kind of mental block for them.
Yeah, I mean, motivation is different for everyone. Like I said earlier, like for me, it's like progress and sometimes losing. That's what motivates me. But for some people, it's different. I think that you got to find what works best for you. That ends up putting the fire in your belly and making you want to get good. Like if it's just like like just playing games with your friends, and then like you realize you're better than them, and then like casual friends too, like I don't know, like maybe even just like one win that doesn't really seem like a big deal, but maybe it's like that one win that you need against someone who's like worse than you or whatever. Maybe that could be your motivation. Like if you're like, a lot of people don't know about like the advanced techniques and stuff like that, and maybe you beat one of those people while knowing them, and it's like, okay, you can see that they're working, and so now you can build off that. That could be your motivation to like keep practicing that kind of stuff. It's kind of just something you kind of have to figure out on your own. I wish there was a clear-cut answer to just like or like even a formula that lets everyone be like very good, but there isn't one, and you just kind of have to self-search a lot and dig deep, and you end up developing your own sort of clutch factor and things that help you keep calm, and things that help you keep focused and stuff like that. So just how it is.
Yeah, and I think that's all I have as far as questions. Do you have anything, Robert, that you wanted to ask before we get into like shout outs and things like that?
I think I got my one main question out there, which was just his goals, but yeah, I mean, we can open up some questions to the chat if anybody's got any questions they're dying to ask for Kevin or us or anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess we'll do a little bit of Q&A here.
Quick.
Yes, so if anyone in the chat... Okay, Bird has put a question. How does it feel how did it feel when you fell from heaven? Did it hurt? Okay, let's get
it. Better than Ivan's. Yes, my Ganon is better than Ivan's as of right now. I think that if Ivan, puts the time in and grinds, that his Ganon maybe someday could end up being better than mine. Realistically speaking, as far as my Nickelodeon All-Stars main, I have my eyes on SpongeBob and Danny Phantom. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately going to be about who feels the best to me. Especially since the game works so differently from Smash, I can't definitively say like who it'll end up being. Oh yeah, the big shout outs to obviously Tracy. If at some point you have ever known me, but you haven't known my girlfriend, it's very surprising because she has been both a very influential person in the community, and then of course a big influential person in my life personally, because she's the person who books all the flights, makes the room plans, gets all the transportation, she makes sure I'm hydrated in tournaments, makes sure that I'm not feeling too emotionally crazy like that day and stuff like that. So she's been my rock for that kind of stuff, and she's been such a reliable person for me. So if you don't know Tracy, I'd be surprised, to be honest, because she's an amazing person and easily the best Mercaltio we could ever ask for.
I agree. Shout out to Tracy.
Shout outs. And then, are there any other questions that y'all have for Kevin?
That's what the doctor looked like? Yes.
I think that I'm gonna take off my headphones momentarily, but I think a lot of people actually might not recognize me, just because I did around a couple years ago. I did end up gaining a ton of weight, or I mean, it wasn't that I gained a ton of weight a few years ago, but it was more like I had been about 180 pounds because of college and stress and being in a relationship and stuff like that. All those combined ended up making me about 180 pounds at only 5'7", which is pretty high. And I ended up losing a lot of weight, and then on top of that, also getting LASIK a few years ago. So I don't wear the glasses anymore, and I do look a little bit thinner now. And then, of course, it is harder to see what I look like with the mask on the Undertow VODs. I will T-pose at the end of the stream.
So
Just let me know before you guys cut out the visuals.
got it.
But yeah.
So any last questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna give it a couple seconds here. Otherwise, we can kind of get into any shout outs you have, Kevin, and also if there's anything you want to just say or stuff like that. But we'll give it a couple more seconds here if anyone has any last questions.
You want to T-pose while we wait, actually?
Yeah, I'll probably do that.
Okay, sure. What are the Undertow gods? I don't really know what that means.
I do not know what that means either.
Oh,
you gonna take
VODs.
those too?
Okay, that makes more sense. I think Trinity said they were going to be uploaded at some point this weekend, but don't really have a definitive date on that yet. But that does lead me to say that I do have plans to actually go over all of my sets that happened in Undertow on Monday at 6:30 p.m. with Thunder's Reign. I'm going to be, it's not really going to be like a play per se, but I'm going to be like looking at like the sets and then kind of talk about what's going on, like what's going on in my head at the time, how I felt before, during, and after the set, and then I'm going to try and hopefully piece together some of the angles that the player cam couldn't catch, because one thing the player cam didn't catch on the Undertow VODs that I saw was when I did win, I ended up getting lifted. I did end up getting lifted by some of the NY and J guys, and that's when they were all chanting my name and stuff like that, and that was a surreal feeling for sure. I think realistically speaking, I think I will forever chase that feeling. I was just talking about it to some of my other friends today. Is I wish that I could constantly be living in that moment over and over again, because just the amount of euphoria that I felt in that moment, I was just like, damn, if this is what it's like to win, I gotta win more often. I
actually have a video of that I can send to you, Kevin. I was going to post it on Discord, but the videos are too long and Discord doesn't like that I don't pay for a subscription. So they're like, no, you can't file that video.
Damn.
Okay,
Okay,
but I'll get it to you.
All right, sick, yeah. But yeah, so I do want to say, or summarize, Monday 6:30 p.m. PST, thought analysis of Undertow with Thunder's Reign, and should be a good time. And then also, I do want to say, and I don't want to 100% commit to this, but I will say it on my stream again on Monday. But I am reconsidering getting into streaming, in the sense that I do want to potentially play Nickelodeon All Stars Brawl when it comes out, and then because that game is a very solid IP and wouldn't have any sort of interference with Nintendo or sponsorships and stuff like that. I'm probably going to take that game seriously if I really like it, and then if I do end up really liking it, then I am going to end up streaming again, for sure. So
very exciting news. I was a big fan, honestly, when your streams were out. I'd tune in all the time. But
I'm surprised, honestly, because I actually get that quite a bit for some of my friends, and I'm really I felt to some degree my streams were pretty boring personally, but I guess I'm the one who's there every single moment. Of course, anyone can go in anytime. And
plus, I think
fun. Yeah.
For some of us too, it's just having a PM content stream, that we can reliably go to, is something that was really nice. I know for me, I'd be oh, I want to watch PM. Kevin's on, let's go watch something like that. But any other shout outs that you want to give, or announcements that you have for everyone?
No, I mean, of course, shout outs to my family, of course, for being a great supporting factor in all of this. My mom and dad are very supportive in all the things that I do, and then my brother is super supportive as well. He is specifically my brother and my mom are the two biggest people in my life that they're my wings, basically, because my mom is the one who supports me emotionally, and then my brother is the one who kind of also partially like supports me financially, but also just like emotionally as well. I think that without those two, like I don't think I would be nearly as happy as I am now, for sure. Even with this achievement, I for those of you who don't know, I did end up calling my mom shortly after I ended up winning Undertow, and I just went to the corner of the venue, and I was just like bawling my eyes out the second I heard my mom's voice on the phone, and I was sounding like I won, like I did it, mom, like that feeling was so good. That feeling was also so good. So yeah, shout outs to them basically.
Shout outs to Kevin's mom.
Well, I think that's all we have for you, Kevin. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on the podcast and sharing kind of your story as a player. And it was, I do think it was honestly inspiring for a lot of us to see you win. And congratulations. I guess that's all I have to say.
Congrats for sure, Kevin.
Thank you guys. Definitely. Thank you. I don't think I have gone like maybe 5 minutes in the last week without thinking, "Holy shit, I won! Let's go!" Like sort of type deal. And one really amazing feeling that I got like right after I won too was just like literally so many people would walk up to me like, or when I say goodbye to them, or when I say hi to them, it's like, "Dude, you're so cool, man! Like you're so good." And I'm just like, "Let's go!" Like thank you. Like I just love that so much. And I guess I should also big shout out the people from the original club. Like Austin, like Robert, of course, was there.
It's me.
Marlo,
He's talking
Colin, and Jeremy, and basically everyone that was a big part of my journey going through. Even the ones that were just like a small piece, but were still really good people. It was. I think the win obviously wouldn't have meant nearly as much without all of those supporting people who had way more faith in me than I ever did in myself up until recently. So,
bro, we had so much faith in you. When it went to game 4 during your set, some of the NY&J guys called us over and they were like, "Hey, when Kevin wins, like he just straight up, when Kevin wins, we're gonna go pick him up. So come over here." We all got ready. Like game 4, we knew it was gonna happen.
That's so crazy, dude. Because I mean, there is a timeline that exists where it was a heartbreaking set and I ended up losing. So I'm glad I don't live in that timeline. I'm glad I live in the timeline where I get to enjoy myself and have a good time, and and I'll always have that memory with me. But thank you guys so much for letting me sort of have the interview that I didn't end up getting to have at Undertow because it was late and it wasn't streamed anyway. So I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. You will have this forever on YouTube as well once we upload it. So
yeah,
awesome. Word. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, then I'm gonna go ahead and
finish MasterChef.
I need to head out, but I know me and Suvir have something planned for after the podcast, so that's something he's gonna have to hit me up for later.
Yeah.
So thank you for having me on. Of course, I think it's great work that you two are doing as well for the community. Having a sort of medium between the game and the players. I think that's great, and I hope that really takes off. And I think you guys are both good people, so I have big hopes for the two of you, for both in and out of game. So
thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
you so much. It means a lot. Thanks again, everyone who's been tuning in. We do have a couple, announcements that we have for the Lon Lon Ranch as well.
I'll go ahead and kick Kevin out here while we make those announcements. Thanks again for being on the podcast, Kevin.
Yeah.
Yep. Goodbye, everyone.
Oh boy.
Okay. So that was such a. Yeah. Okay. So that was a very fun interview. It went longer than I expected, but to be honest, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it was very exciting to get to know a lot that I didn't know before about Kevin and his experience going to Undertow and his journey to winning a national.
Yeah, Kevin's pretty sick. I wish it were easier to articulate like the feeling of being where I am of like having been Kevin's friend and roommate for a little, and like just knowing him for so long, and like I'm one of the few lucky people who've been able to just see this journey like happen throughout both of our lives, and it's pretty freaking dope, I gotta say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But let's get into our announcements so we
Yeah.
can go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah, enough about Kevin, but more about NorCal. Here's our first announcement. We've got some sick tourneys lined up here in NorCal on the 25th of this month. That is next Saturday. Here in Davis, we have our next Ascension that starts at 3 p.m. That's when the doors open. We do not have a link for that yet, but stay tuned. That'll be up on the NorCal PM Twitter, and I'm sure that we'll retweet it through the Lon Lon Ranch Twitter as well. We also got AFK coming up the week after that in this Campbell. It's basically San Jose. So if you're in the Bay Area, pull up. Then we got another Ascension at the end of that month, which, as you can see on the graphic, is featuring SoCal PM. We don't know exactly who yet is for sure coming. I know Suvir.
So right now, me and Sosa are definitely confirmed. I know that some other players are considering coming out as well. Gazer, for example, too, is considering coming, and if he does, he can drive as well. So we may get a few extra players, but we're going to see exactly who all we can get. I know Blub is a bit interested as well, so that'll be exciting. And I think it's the first time for a lot of SoCal. A lot of us didn't go to Undertow, so it'll be a chance for us to at least travel and get some out-of-region practice. So also, speaking of SoCal PM, we will be having our local, the Hylian Castle, the same day as the Ascension listed there, 9/25. So you all can catch the Hylian Castle there as well. We won't have a stream, unfortunately. I found that out today, but it's still going to be an event. If you're in SoCal, you can come out, and if it's similar to how it was listed for NorCal PM. If you're a first-time attendee of the Hylian Castle, you will get your fee waived, and yeah.
Pretty dope. Yeah, go play some PM, guys.
Yeah,
I would shill other regions in-person tournaments, but I honestly don't know enough about when and where they are to do that. But just go play PM. PM is sick.
And I'm sure if you're looking, you'll be able to find the other regions tournaments as well. Shout outs to anyone who plays the game. Next, let's get into our big news for the Lon Lon Ranch. I don't know if you want to talk a bit about this, Robert. Bring it up on the screen.
Yeah. So our big announcement for Team Lon Lon that previously used to just be Suvir and I. We are expanding our little team here and getting some more people to help us out. And the first person that we would like to announce as joining our team is Mr. Big Large himself. Big Large and in charge will be joining. Has joined the Lon Lon Ranch team. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very excited to have Joey on. Representing LG, and now a member of the Lon Lon Ranch. And I do want to talk a bit, if you could pull up the graphic about the show that he's going to be hosting under the Lon Lon Ranch. Let me know when you have that up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Big Large is planning on hosting a show called Big Talk, and the first episode of that is going to be on his Twitch on Friday, September 24th at 5 p.m. PST. And this is going to be kind of a debate show for those of you who have wanted to see that, and you can see the first two guests on there are going to be Malachi and Tismatic. Malachi representing NYNJ and Tismatic representing PNW, and this is going to be on the topic of stages and stage design. Basically what makes a stage good for competitive play. So, for those of you who are interested in kind of the stage dilemma, I mean, I know New York, New Jersey did announce that they're trying a new stage list, and PNW did kind of have a reaction to that, and other people are having their own reactions to that. That we're gonna have your man Big Large and In Charge hosting some big talk about the stage list. So he's gonna be the moderator, and he's gonna be hosting a debate between Malachi and Tismatic.
Yeah, and from what I know, Joey, Mr. Big Large himself, did in fact take a debate class one time. So he's got to be a debate pro. I'm sure it's going to be pretty dang cool.
No, yeah, absolutely. And also, I'm pretty sure the people from these regions, PNW and NYNJ, do have pretty differing opinions. So we will have some good takes to people passionate about their arguments and stuff like that. So it should be exciting. This is a chance for everyone to, hear the arguments straight up and have them in a confined space.
Yeah. With that being said, we actually have one more announcement here. One more player who will be joining our ranks. That is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Sosa, has also joined Team Lon Lon.
Yeah, so Sosa, a lot of you may not recognize him nowadays, but he was the #1 player in 2018 and one of the best players in the world to have touched the controller. And he's planning on coming back to the game, and he's actually been attending quite a few SoCal locals. And Sosa will be helping us by helping create a Wario guide and also future informational guides. So we're gonna start off with the Wario guide. It may take a bit of time to get off the ground. He has started working on that a bit, but it will be split into a couple different parts to give some digestible information and content for everyone. And so welcome Sosa to Team Lon Lon.
I'm gonna go ahead and post a link here to our to our YouTube channel. If you guys want to go ahead and sub to us on YouTube, that's where we post all of our podcast episodes, and where we will also be posting the VOD for Big Large's Big Talk, as well as Sosa's Wario Guide and any other future online content. So be sure to hit us with a sub over there. You can also follow our Twitter, where we will also keep you informed. Let me see if I can pull up a link to that real quick.
Yeah, I think I can drop it real quick.
I beat you to it. Correct.
Well, we both put it. So, please consider following us on Twitter. We are trying to grow our content and expand, so if you could help out, that'd be great.
We are also in the talks of getting some giveaways going if we can reach some certain milestones on Twitter and on YouTube. So if you follow us there at our socials, you'll be the first one to know when these
giveaways go away.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So those are kind of the announcements that we had today. We're going to be putting all this information out on our Twitter and also just in general. So do stay tuned for more Lon Lon Ranch content. And we thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you guys all for watching. Shout outs to Kevin for joining us today, Tracy for helping us with some graphics, as well as Suvir and Big Large. Welcome to the team, Big Large and Sosa.
Yeah, welcome.
I think with that being said, we'll go ahead and peace out.
Absolutely. Have a good one, everyone.
You guys all have a great rest of your night. Everyone.
Peace.